Pokémon Legends Z-A is finally just under 2 weeks away from release, and my excitement cannot be contained at this point. I cannot wait to play it. But in some of my recent videos, I've noticed a few people still kinda confused and maybe left expecting more from this game. So I decided to gather up all the information I've learned from the various trailers, pre-release screenshots, and preview gameplay released so far to recap 50 things you need to know before Pokémon Legends Z-A. This means I'll probably be going over some stuff you already know, like the fact the game will be playable on both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, with the latter costing $10 more but having much better performance and graphics. But there's bound to be at least one little bit of information or less known mechanic you didn't know about, so don't forget to leave a like if you're excited, and let's get right into it with perhaps the most controversial thing about this game. Pokémon Legends Z-A will take place entirely within Lumiose City. I know some fans were still holding out hope there would be more than just the city, but there are no other towns, routes, caves, or forests like we've come to expect from literally every other Pokémon game. Thankfully, Lumiose is at least a lot bigger than it was back in the original X and Y, with its 5 districts being seamlessly connected with no loading between them and fully explorable after just an hour or so of gameplay, which could be a bit worrisome for players on Switch 1 considering the last open world game's performance. But since it really does all take place in the city, one might wonder, where are the Pokémon at? To make room for more Pokémon, a new company called Quasartico started redeveloping the entire city and building futuristic enclosures known as Wild Zones. These replace many of the parks, plazas, and even some of the neighborhoods in Lumiose, which I imagine some of the citizens aren't too happy about. I mean, imagine waking up to a herd of go-go breaking through your window. The game starts out with just 6 of these wild zones, but plenty more get added as you progress through the story, with 15 of them confirmed so far. One of them is Jaune Plaza, which as you can see goes from a pretty mid-park to a beautiful pit of sand for ground and fighting type Pokemon to live in. In case you couldn't tell, that was a bit of sarcasm, as I'm definitely with the crowd saying these wild zones aren't nearly as diverse or interesting looking as the routes they're supposed to be replacing. Each wild zone has a recommended level you can see in the gate before entering. I'm sure this will keep some people from wandering into a level 50 on their first day. And these gates actually reference the old statues you'd find at the entrance of Pokemon gyms. Speaking of gyms, there will be no gyms in Pokémon Legends Z-A. I mean, technically we don't know what's going on in Prism Tower, but in this game progression will instead be tied to the Z-A Royale, a citywide tournament which takes place only at nighttime, during which these red battle zones appear. Defeating trainers within these battle zones will earn you points to rank up from Z all the way up to A. Hey, that's the name of the game. This means the core gameplay of Z-A will have you catching Pokemon during the day and battling trainers at night, but there's so much more to it than that. I mean, we're only at point number 3. And next I want to mention that Pokemon won't spawn exclusively inside wild zones. Many of them can be found freely roaming the streets of Lumiose, and this game actually carries over the catching mechanics from its predecessor, Legends Arceus, which means you can aim your Pokeballs and catch pretty much anything you see as long as it doesn't belong to a trainer, even without having to battle. You've probably noticed just how much variety of Pokemon they've managed to cram in despite taking place in just the city. And some recently released commercials even show off the fossils from Kalos, making it very likely that every single Pokemon from Gen 6 will return, even including the original Kalos starters, though exactly how you get them is still unknown. But the actual starters for this game will of course be Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig, a quite unusual trio considering 2 of them are originally from Johto. Weirdly enough, we haven't seen them evolve even to their middle forms in any of the trailers yet, which might give some hope that they'll have regional evolutions like the starters from the previous Legends game did. But as you likely know, Legends Z-A seems to be all about the big return of Mega Evolutions, so most people assume these starters will be Mega Evolving instead. This fan favorite mechanic was first introduced in Pokémon X and Y nearly 12 years ago, and Legends Z-A is actually a direct sequel to those games, with many familiar faces reappearing like Emma, a character from the post-game of X and Y who's now leading Lumiose's detective agency. Let's not forget the main man AZ himself, who somehow seems to have grown even taller and now runs a hotel alongside his precious Floette. There's also Mabel, an ex-Team Flare scientist turned professor in place of Sycamore. And though the sexy professor himself is nowhere to be seen in any of the trailers so far, our protagonist does seem to bear an uncanny resemblance to him. Perhaps Sycamore had a secret child all along? or maybe we're his younger brother or cousin. But there will also be plenty of new faces in ZA, including Team MZ, a group we joined early in the game with the goal of protecting Lumiose. There's Naveen, an upcoming fashion designer, Lita, a dancer in training who might just be related to Tierno, and our main rival that actually changes depending on what look you choose at the beginning of the game, Tawny for the guys or Urbane for the gals. On that note, character customization is back and better than any Pokemon game before it, fitting for Kalos as the region that first introduced customization. And it's been confirmed you can actually wear any clothes regardless of what gender you choose, so if you wanted the male rival while presenting as male yourself, you can technically do that by picking one of the female looks at the beginning and customizing yourself later into the game. Going back to the story, more than just a sequel to X and Y, Legends Z-A is also a sort of spiritual successor to the game that never happened, Pokémon Z. Therefore, the legendary Pokémon Zygarde will of course have a major role in this game, helping you take down the first rogue Mega Pokemon and later seen gathering its cells to power up, so definitely expect to see its 50% and complete forms later on. But to wrap up on the story, I mentioned this new corporation called Quasartico Inc., the ones responsible for Lumiose's redevelopment plan, but also the ones behind the ZA Royale. And it's said the winner of this tournament will actually be granted any wish they want by Quasartico, so you have to wonder exactly how they plan to grant this wish. Their headquarters just so happen to be built right on top of where Team Flare's secret lab once stood. And their CEO, Jet, is actually the character who introduces us to the world of Pokemon. Suspicious? She certainly wouldn't be the first Pokemon CEO who turned out to be evil. Another new organization in Lumiose is the Rust Syndicate, led by the edgelord Corbeau. Though their exact goals are still unknown, they're definitely being set up as the evil team of Legends Z-A. But if recent Pokemon games have taught us anything, it's that evil teams are rarely the true villains of the game, and Corbeau specifically is almost made to look like a gym leader in the trailers. There's also these two other banners that appear right after the introduction to Rust, so maybe there will be a sort of equivalent to gyms after all. We've somehow made it this far into the video without bringing up the biggest selling point of Legends Z-A, real-time battles. But before we dive into what this revolutionary change means for Pokemon, I want to give a huge thanks to Tokyo Tree and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. The spooky season is nearly upon us. So this month, Tokyo Tree and Sakurako have got some Halloween and fall-themed snacks for us. And we have a special guest as usual. We'll start off with Sakurako. And this month's theme is Nico's Autumn Splendor. That's so beautiful. Oh my goodness, what is this? Whoa, that's so cool. That pattern is sick. You know what? We can use this as like a little backdrop for the spread. What do I actually want to eat? Well, that's where we consult the booklet, where you can of course read about each of these treats, like this month's maker highlight, Nico Yuba chips. Whoa, look at how these look. These have a really interesting texture. I have no idea what this is gonna taste like. Let's find out. That might be the most like unique texture snack I've ever had. As weird as it is though, I can't stop eating them, so still recommended. Definitely more on the salty side, so let's go with something sweet. And these Momiji Manju definitely stand out. Most Sakurako and Tokyo treat boxes, the treats themselves have multiples, so they're perfect for sharing, just not with kitties. But you can have one. Is there red bean inside? Definitely leaves a little crumbly dryness in my mouth, so we're gonna finish it up with the tea. We're gonna use the beautiful little teacup we got last month too. Now, I have burned my tongue one too many times recording these, so I'm gonna save this for the very end. We're just gonna let it steep. In the meantime, let's pop open this very awesome looking spooky Tokyo treat. Whoa, snacktacular Halloween. Of course, every Tokyo treat has a special Kit Kat. We got a Halloween Kit Kat this month. Apurupi. Apuru pai. It's apple pie. My Japanese lessons are failing me. I mean, obviously I can see it on the label, but I'm trying to actually read it. Whoa, look at this ramen. Okay, I might actually do the ramen. I never do the ramen. I'm kind of hungry today, so that works. What the heck? They got a... What's this Pokemon? Pocket Monster Cookie. So I guess you can get different Pokemon. A little piece of it broke off, but looks pretty good. Very buttery, golden. And most importantly, it is delicious. We have our second special guest for the day. And the ramen is spooky spicy ramen. Beware, it is scarily spicy. Okay. Oh, that smells good. Look at that, fogged up my glasses. Oh my gosh, yeah, the spicy is hitting now. Like my lips are going a little numb. So if you haven't yet, sign up with the link in the description or use code MUNCH to get $5 off your first Tokyo Treat or Sakurako box. And thanks again to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Though a few spin-off titles and fan games have tried it before, I've been looking forward to seeing Game Freak themselves take a swing at real-time combat for a very long time. To be honest, I would have liked to be able to control the Pokemon themselves, but in keeping true to the main line's identity, it does make sense that you control the trainer instead. And to be honest, from what I've played in the demo so far, the new combat system is pretty dang fun. Each Pokemon still has 4 moves you can choose by locking onto a target and pressing the corresponding button. When you're not locked on, you can run around as the trainer and even roll to dodge Pokemon attacks, as most wild ones will actually target you, the trainer. But despite only being able to control the trainer, your partner Pokemon loosely follows your movements, which you can sort of use to dodge attacks. Though I found it pretty difficult getting them to consistently move out of the way fast enough. But the biggest change to the battle system are the moves themselves. Instead of PP, moves now have cooldowns, which basically means you can't spam the same one over and over, as you have to wait for this symbol to refill before using it again. Apparently cooldowns will be directly tied to the speed stat, so the higher a Pokemon's speed, the faster it'll be able to use a move again, which makes it kinda sound like faster Pokemon will be stronger, so I wonder how they'll balance slower Pokemon around this mechanic. Moves no longer have accuracy either, and whether they actually hit the opponent or not vastly differs from move to move. For example, Surf basically covers the whole battlefield, while Earthquake damages in a wide radius around the user. Ranged attacks launch out at different speeds, so some can be dodged more easily than others, while melee attacks require the Pokemon to physically walk up before activating. This makes priority moves like Bullet Punch very interesting, as they'll instantly teleport you to the enemy, whereas pivot moves like Volt Switch instead teleport you away, so these could be really powerful when combined. But entry hazards might have the most interesting change, as they now physically summon obstacles on the field, which, as you can see, block and damage the enemy if you position them correctly. That leads right into the next point. While playing the demo, I noticed that if there's any kind of terrain or obstacle in your way, attacks won't just go through them, which might seem obvious, but I guess I expected some jank from Pokemon. We've seen plenty of benches and other obstacles in various battlefields that I imagine have been placed so your Pokemon or enemies can use them as cover. Now, the mechanics for real-time battles will slightly differ depending on whether you're facing a wild Pokemon or a trainer. Since wild Pokemon tend to target you, that means you can actually recall your Pokemon back into the safety of its ball, as a cheeky way to avoid taking damage. In trainer battles, Pokemon target each other, so you can't just recall them, that would be cheating. But you can switch between the other Pokemon in your party. However, when switching or sending out a Pokemon, they have a short summoning animation, during which they're vulnerable to getting hit, so timing will be very important. And actually, if one of your Pokemon faints during a trainer battle, the game gives you a little time to strategize before being forced to switch something in. Within battle zones, you're encouraged to be a little sneaky, as trainers can spot you if you get in their line of sight. And how close you are to being spotted is indicated by this bar that fills up at the top of the screen. A very nice return to form after trainers were made almost entirely optional in Scarlet and Violet. But along with this returns another fan favorite feature, Backstrikes, with a twist. Not only can you use these to make catching Pokemon easier, but you can also sneak attack trainers. If you get close enough to target a trainer's Pokemon before they're able to spot you, using an attack on them will net you a free hit, which I believe does more damage, but also, more importantly, doesn't count towards that move's cooldown. So if you sneak attack with a super effective move, then immediately use it again when the battle starts, you can potentially knock that Pokemon out before it even has a chance to react. Poor little Weedle. On the flip side, some enemy trainers can also sneak attack you, though it seems like only sometimes it'll count as being caught off guard, and your Pokemon will actually start the battle stunned so the enemy gets a free attack. Another old feature coming back to haunt you from the grave is poison damage remaining outside of battle. We haven't seen this since Gen 4, which was a crazy long time ago, but like Gen 4 though, Pokemon won't faint from it, They just barely survive and stay at 1 HP. As we learned, speed only seems to affect move cooldown, not how fast your Pokemon can move around the battlefield. But it looks like paralysis will affect movement. Unless this just means its cooldowns will take longer. I tried to find a clip to compare, but there's no other footage of this specific Fletchinger before getting paralyzed. But I did find this clip of Roselia getting confused and remaining confused even after the battle's over. So I wonder what this could mean for other status ailments like Burn. I could totally see it dealing damage over time like Poison does, and if Frostbite returns from Legends Arceus, it might also slow Pokemon down. Next, let's break down the Z-A Royale itself, as ranking up isn't as simple as just beating up a bunch of trainers. Well, actually it kind of is, but basically each trainer you defeat within a battle zone will give you points, and after earning enough points you'll get a challenger ticket, which you can use to participate in a promotion match. These are kind of like gym battles, though the characters themselves don't seem nearly as unique as gym leaders, but they seem to be slightly harder battles against special trainers which, if you win, let you rank up. Defeating Z-A Royale trainers will also earn you prize medals, which can be turned into money at the end of the night depending on how many battles you won overall. Some can even just be picked up from the ground within battle zones. But there's also these bonus cards that give you specific objectives, like hitting moves of a certain type or knocking out Pokemon with Mega Evolution. Looks like you can read the objective before picking up a bonus card, and considering there's only room for 3 of them in the end screen, it's possible you might only be able to pick up 3 of these per night, so you'll want to make sure they're objectives you can actually complete. But the real-time battles aren't just limited to single player, as Legends Z-A will also feature an online multiplayer mode known as the Z-A Battle Club. In this mode, 4 players face off in a free-for-all, and earn points by knocking out others' Pokemon. Whoever has the most points after 3 minutes wins and gets to rise through the ranks, much like you do in the story. You'll be able to earn rewards after each match, and at the end of the season based on what rank you made it to. But the only reward we know about so far is perhaps the most controversial aspect of Legends Z-A. The newly revealed Mega Evolutions for the Kalos starters. Well, they're Mega Stones technically. Since they can only be obtained as seasonal rewards for rising through the ranks in multiplayer, this means they're not only limited time, but also require a Nintendo Online membership. Now, if I had to guess, you probably won't need to make it too high in the ranks, but still, the fact they require an online subscription and can't be earned in any other way is pretty lame. At least there will be plenty other new Mega Evolutions to discover, hopefully all within the single player experience, and our next segment is all about them. So far we have almost 50 Mega Evolutions confirmed to be in Z-A, with almost every single one introduced in Gen 6 returning. I expect the few we haven't seen in the trailers yet will also make it, especially since we've seen their counterparts already in the game, except maybe the legendaries, which could be saved for post-game or DLC. There will of course be plenty of new Mega Evolutions too, with Mega Dragonite, Mega Victreebel, Mega Hawlucha, and Mega Malamar being revealed so far. According to rumors, there will be 26 new Mega Evolutions in Z-A, bringing the grand total to 74 Mega Evolutions, which is just an insane amount, and there's even more coming. But Mega Evolutions might not be exactly how you remember them. With real-time battles comes a brand new mechanic I've dubbed the Mega Evolution Energy Meter, or meme for short. Mega Energy can be collected by simply using attacks in battles, and I do mean just using, not even landing the hits, as you gain the energy immediately upon pressing the attack button. There's also Mega Orbs dropped by certain Pokemon that you can pick up to fill the meter, and once fully charged you just press in the right analog stick to Mega Evolve any Pokemon capable of it whose Mega Stone you've obtained. Once Mega Evolved, the energy quickly starts running out, and when depleted, your Pokemon will revert back to normal. But there's something strange going on with Mega Evolutions in Lumiose, as some wild Pokemon seem to be Mega Evolving all on their own, a phenomenon known as Rogue Mega Evolution. Like the noble Pokemon from Legends Arceus, these rogues have become enraged and are causing havoc in the city, and it's your job to calm them down by kicking their asses, of course. Defeating a rogue Mega Evolution will earn you that Pokemon's respective Mega Stone, which you can use to Mega Evolve your own of that species. And at least in the case of Rogue Mega Absol, it actually joins your party after being defeated, so it's possible other rogues will also join you after being disciplined. In battles against rogues, they specifically target you, meaning you'll have to balance between dodging their attacks while also weaving in your own. and your trainer actually has their own HP, indicated by the border that appears around the screen whenever you get hit. You can only take up to 3 hits, as the 4th in a row will actually cause you to black out and have to restart the whole battle. Thankfully, the trainer's HP does heal back over time as long as you avoid taking damage. But your Pokemon can also get caught in the crossfire and hurt, though they can be more easily healed with regular items. But there is an item cooldown, so you can't just spam potions, at least during boss battles. And while I couldn't find any footage of it, I assume this cooldown applies to trainer battles too. One of the most interesting changes to Mega Evolutions though comes in the form of plus moves. These are essentially the replacement for agile and strong style moves from Legends Arceus, now being simplified to just doing more damage. But you can only use these after a move has been mastered, another mechanic carrying over from the previous Legends game that basically required you to level up a few times after learning a new move in order to master it. Once mastered, this symbol will appear next to the move and allow you to use it in agile or strong style. But in Legends Z-A, mastered moves instead get this plus symbol next to them, which means they can be powered up to do more damage at the cost of a single slice from your Mega Evolution energy. The coolest thing is, any Pokemon can make use of plus moves, not just ones capable of Mega Evolving. But Mega Evolutions will have all their moves become plus moves, making for an interesting choice if you want a small boost immediately or saving up your energy for a Mega power-up. Another very cool change is you can actually Mega Evolve multiple times and even multiple Pokemon in the same battle. Not at the same time, of course, but because Mega Evolutions are now on a timer, in long drawn-out fights like against rogues, even after your first Mega Evolution runs out, if you're able to refill the meter, you can just do it again, and even with other Pokemon capable of Mega Evolving in your party. Now, I mentioned that defeating rogues will get you their Mega Stone, but not all Mega Stones will be obtained this way. Some you'll have to buy from the Stone Emporium, a store you might remember from the original X and Y. I've also noticed what look like Mega Stones you can pick up off the ground. This definitely doesn't look like a regular item and matches the pink glow of Mega Evolutions. But finally, there will be some Mega Stones that have to be traded for Mega Shards at Quasartico. What are Mega Shards, you might be wondering? Well, throughout Lumiose, you'll notice these pink crystals have started sprouting up everywhere, which you can break using your Pokemon's attacks. When smashed, these crystals drop a new material called Mega Shards that can be traded for Mega Stones at Quasartico's HQ. Apparently, these Mega Crystals are what's causing random wild Pokemon to Mega Evolve, which begs the question, who or what could be making these crystals appear? But Mega Shards are far from the only collectible you'll find throughout Lumiose. So let's move on to the next segment. While playing the demo, I noticed these big rocks that can be targeted and definitely look breakable. However, Chikorita's moves couldn't even put a dent on these, so you might need a specific move like Rock Smash to break them. There's also these mysterious looking thorns that can also be targeted, but I have to wonder what you get from them, since there's no crafting system in this game like there was in Legends Arceus. Maybe they can be traded to a specific NPC, or this park just really needs some landscaping. I mentioned you can still just walk up and whack a Pokemon on the head without having to battle it, but there's a new mechanic in this game when battling wild Pokemon, as even when their HP drops to 0, they won't immediately faint. Instead, they get stunned, giving you a sort of last chance to catch them. I say last chance because according to some reviewers, if you fail to catch a Pokemon in this stunned state, they'll disappear after. So it might still be smarter to just weaken them down to red HP like always. Ever wonder what happens to all those Pokeballs you waste when you just can't hit the dang thing? Well, in Pokemon Legends Z-A, there's apparently a designated ball collector, that'll pick up any throws you happen to miss. So I'm not sure if this means you can actually claim those Pokeballs you lost. On the topic of ball collecting, I noticed this scene in the latest overview trailer shows that we'll probably be able to get Apricorn Balls, hopefully through easier methods than in past games. Another mechanic I'm super happy to see return are Alpha Pokemon, and it looks like they'll be just as scary in the streets of Lumiose as they were back in Hisui. But new to this game is the fact that Alphas will always know a move their species can't normally learn on its own. Though the website doesn't specify if this means an egg move, TM move, or just some other move they've never had access to before. Regular Pokemon sizes also vary greatly. This was technically in Scarlet and Violet, but the size differences weren't nearly as noticeable as they were in Legends Arceus. And in Legends Z-A, you can even see their size classification in the summary screen, similar to how it is in Pokemon Go, which could mean Pokemon transferred from Go actually retained their size, as I believe they got randomized when transferred into Legends Arceus. and it means alpha Pokemon transferred from Hisui will likely also remain humongous. But on that note, Pokemon transferred from home into Legends Z-A will no longer be able to be transferred back to their original games. Not sure if this is because of the changes to size or the stats themselves being different because of the real-time battle system, but if you were planning on transferring some of your old buddies to Lumiose, just know they're going to be stuck here. Well, actually you can take them back into home, but then they'll be stuck there. And on that note, Pokemon Home compatibility is confirmed, but we don't have an exact date yet. I imagine it'll be around the same time Pokemon Champions releases, since we know Mega Dragonite will be transferable to that game, so you can probably transfer any Pokemon from ZA to Champions. When Pokemon Home becomes available though, you'll also be able to bring over any regional variants of Pokemon whose other forms are in ZA, like Hisuian Goodra, Alolan Raichu, and Galarian Slowpoke. Wait a minute, does that mean Galarian Slowbro can Mega Evolve? With so many Pokemon being crammed into Lumiose, there will of course be some that only appear at certain times of day. And thankfully, you can rest at your bedroom in Hotel Z to fast forward time. I know this was a thing in Legends Arceus, but it wasn't in Scarlet and Violet, so figured it was worth mentioning. So even though the game wants you to do ZA Royale battles at night, it might also be worth checking out some of the wild zones to see if any new creatures are lurking in the dark. Though it won't be nearly as crucial as it was in Legends Arceus, catching Pokemon will still be just as rewarding, as it looks like you can get goodies like TMs and XP candies from Professor Mabel for raising your Pokédex level by catching certain amount of Pokemon or completing Wild Zones collections. But I'm a little confused what requests could mean on this screen, since requests were basically side quests back in Legends Arceus, but will apparently be called side missions in this game. So maybe requests are like research tasks from the Hisui Pokédex, and completing them likely raises your Pokédex level. Like I just mentioned, side quests, now called side missions, are back, and weirdly enough, this might be the returning feature I'm most excited for because there were some really weird side quests in Hisui, and getting to know the citizens of Jubilife Village was arguably more exciting than the actual rewards you got from them. There were some pretty good ones though. You might have noticed our character zipping through the air like Spider-Man at times, and this is thanks to a new feature in the Rotom phone known as Roto Glide. Seems like it won't be unlocked from the beginning of the game, but once you get it, you'll be able to fly across from rooftop to rooftop. And as for reaching the roofs in the first place, there's these handy-dandy holovators throughout the city, and even bridges suspended between some of the buildings. With all these weird traversal options, this sadly means we probably won't get any Poke Rides, which was another one of my favorite parts of Legends Arceus, so this is probably one of the biggest downsides of the game being set in just Lumiose. To finally wrap up on exploration, let's take a look at the Lumiose map, where you can see there are a lot more fast travel points than usual, and unlike the old days where you needed an HM, you'll be able to fast travel from very early on in the game. You might have also noticed some buildings are clearly a darker shade of red. These seem to be ones that you can enter, which I'm happy to say there are quite a lot of. Since a lot of the city, at least visual-wise, does look very samey, at least we'll be able to enter some buildings to break up that monotony. Now let's round out the video with a few features that didn't really fit into the previous sections, or I just forgot about till now, starting with the fact that any Pokemon can follow you around in the overworld. This isn't really news as it's kind of become a staple of 3D Pokemon, but new to this game is that your partner will even appear in cutscenes, as you can see with this Dragonair. Also new is the fact you can share a snack with your Pokemon at one of the many cafes in Lumiose, and more than just a cute cutscene, this will actually heal your Pokemon and make them more friendly towards you. Some recent new gameplay actually reveals that this feature will be heavily tied to the new and improved camera mode, which just so happened to be the next point I wanted to talk about. They've already made a lot of improvements to it in Scarlet and Violet, but it looks to be even better in Legends Z-A as you can send out your whole squad to take photos with and position the camera wherever you want since the Rotom phone floats, of course. Let's finish strong with perhaps the most important thing you should know about this game. Abilities do not exist. This won't shock anyone who played the previous Legends game since it also had no abilities. Or did it? Because some specific Pokemon like Cherrim pretty much did have all the mechanics of its signature flower gift, being able to transform and get its stats boosted in the sun. There's also Regigigas, whose slow start is apparently coded to be like a status ailment that halves its attack and speed for the first 5 turns. So with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if some specific Pokemon like Aegislash still have their abilities baked in, as it's so core to making this Pokemon work. In fact, we've actually seen both of Aegislash's forms in the trailers now, so I'm fairly certain some select abilities will at least technically exist. What is confirmed to be returning are held items. Though we've only seen berries so far, it's possible more impactful held items like Life Orb or Choice Scarf could be in the game, but because this is their first time doing real-time battles, I feel like Game Freak will probably stick to basics before adding in more complicated mechanics like abilities or held items that actually change the gameplay. And finally, the most important thing you need to know. Evolutions can only be triggered from the menu. This might seem anticlimactic. I mean, that's how it was in Legends Arceus, but with real-time battles, I can't be the only one that was hoping they might pull an anime move and finally let Pokemon evolve mid-battle. I guess Pokemon don't gain experience mid-battle, so it would never really be on the same level as the anime, but I don't know, I still think it'd be pretty cool. Now, you might be thinking there's one more very important thing I'm forgetting about, and you'd be right, because Legends Z-A is confirmed to be getting DLC. So last but certainly not least, we have Mega Dimensions, an expansion that'll continue the story after the events of the main game. You can purchase the DLC starting October 16th, the same day as the game releases, for $30, but you won't actually be able to play it until later. The release date hasn't been announced yet, but the website says it'll come out soon after the game, so maybe sometime around the holidays. If you pre-order Mega Dimensions though, you'll get the super cool X and Y holo wares that you can wear in the base game from day one. But the main draw of the DLC will be that it features even more new Mega Evolutions that weren't even in the leaks, like Mega Raichu X and Mega Raichu Y. But perhaps most important of all is that this DLC will finally take us somewhere other than Lumiose, as we step through Hoopa's portals and venture to a new wacky place known as Hyperspace Lumiose. Yep, even in the DLC, we'll still be in the city. And that is 50 things you need to know before Pokémon Legends Z-A. As I was putting together this list, I realized just how much Game Freak has packed into this game. Z-A is truly shaping up to be the most unique Pokémon experience so far, and I just cannot wait to finally play it. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, as I'll of course be doing a full playthrough of the game, and let me know which of these features you're most excited for, or if I missed anything in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in Lumiose.